The ballroom was filled with noise. Champagne glasses clinked. People laughed. Music played. The Mr. Olympia Victory Gala was in full swing. The greatest bodybuilding event of the year was being celebrated in the grandest way possible. Arnold sat at a table, surrounded by sponsors, journalists, promoters, and hangers-on. Everyone wanted a piece of him. Everyone wanted to congratulate him. Everyone wanted to be associated with his victory. He had won, again, for the 10th time, a record that seemed unbreakable. And everyone was celebrating. But Arnold was not celebrating. He smiled. He shook hands. He posed for photos. He said all the right things. He played the role of the gracious champion. But inside, something was wrong. He could feel it. A hollowness, a disconnect, a sense that he was watching himself from outside his body, watching this man, this champion, go through the motions of victory without actually experiencing it. A sponsor tried to get his attention. A businessman who wanted to discuss a new product deal. Arnold nodded politely, but wasn't really listening. The words were just sounds. The conversation was just noise. A journalist asked him how it felt to win again. Arnold gave the standard answer. It feels great. I'm honored. The training paid off. I'm grateful. All true, all meaningless. The gala continued around him. The celebration was real. The joy was real for everyone else. But for Arnold, it felt like he was watching a party that he wasn't actually invited to. He looked around the room at the faces. Some were happy. Some were trying to look happy. Some were calculating how they could benefit from his victory. No one seemed to notice that Arnold was not actually there. By 10 p.m., the party was still going strong. Arnold had endured hours of celebration, hours of handshakes and photos and congratulations. And he couldn't do it anymore. He stood up from the table without saying anything to anyone. He didn't announce his departure. He didn't make a speech. He didn't say goodbye. He just left. The security guard at the exit tried to stop him. Mr. Schwarzenegger, where are you going? The party is still happening. I need some air, Arnold said. And he kept walking. He went to his car. He drove through the empty Los Angeles streets at night. He drove without thinking about where he was going. He just drove. And somehow, without consciously deciding, he ended up at the gym, the 24-hour gym where he trained, the place that was always open, the place where there were no sponsors and no journalists and no expectations, the place where there was just him and the weights. He parked his car and went inside. The gym was almost empty at midnight, just a few hardcore trainees working on their physiques. No one noticed Arnold come in. No one recognized him. Or, if they did, they left him alone. Arnold went to the locker room and changed into his training clothes. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have a routine. He just needed to be there, in the silence, with the weights. He started with the bench press. Not heavy, just moving, just feeling his body, just remembering why he had started doing this in the first place. Because it wasn't for the trophy. It wasn't for the celebration. It wasn't for the sponsors or the journalists or the fans. It was for this, for the feeling of his muscles working, for the connection to his body, for the honesty of the work. He moved from one exercise to the next. His muscles were tired from the competition just hours ago, but he trained anyway. An old man came up to him, a trainer who had been at the gym for years. "Arnold," the man said, surprised, "what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be at the victory party?" "I was," Arnold said. "I left." The old trainer didn't ask why. He just nodded like he understood. "You training for the next one already?" the old trainer asked. "No," Arnold said. "I'm just training." The old trainer understood. He left Arnold alone. Arnold continued training. Hours passed. The gym grew slightly busier as early morning trainees started arriving for their pre-dawn workouts. But no one bothered him. By 5 a.m., Arnold was still there. His body was completely exhausted. His muscles were completely depleted. But his mind was clearer than it had been in weeks. Because in the silence of the gym, without the noise of celebration, without the demands of being a champion, without the weight of everyone's expectations, Arnold could finally think. He could finally understand what was bothering him. He had won, again, and it had felt like nothing. The trophy meant nothing. The celebration meant nothing. The victory meant nothing because it had all become routine. He had achieved the goal so many times that the goal no longer meant anything. And now he was stuck, caught between knowing that he didn't want to stop, but also knowing that continuing didn't mean anything anymore. He was winning for winning's sake. He was competing because that's what he did. He was being a champion because that's who he had become. But the passion was gone. The hunger was gone. The reason was gone. All that remained was a habit. As the sun came up, Arnold sat in the gym, still in his training clothes, still covered in sweat, and he cried. Not because he was sad, but because he didn't know how to stop. Because he didn't know who he was without the competition, without the training, without the pursuit of victory. The identity he had built his entire life around was the only identity he had, and he couldn't let go of it. But he also couldn't continue with it, because it no longer meant anything. That was the confusion. That was the loneliness. He was the world's greatest bodybuilder, and he had never felt more alone. A young trainer came over and recognized Arnold. He was excited. He wanted to talk about the victory, about training, about what Arnold was doing. But Arnold just looked at him with tired eyes and said, "What does it all mean?" The young trainer didn't understand the question. The competition, the trophy, the victory. What does it all mean? Arnold asked again. "It means you're the best," the young trainer said simply. "But what does that mean?" Arnold pressed. "What does being the best mean if it feels like nothing?" The young trainer didn't have an answer. By 7 a.m., Arnold left the gym. He drove back to the hotel where the victory party was still going on. Or maybe it had ended by now. He wasn't sure. He went to his room and looked at the trophy sitting on the table. For the first time, he understood that the trophy was just a thing. It had no meaning except the meaning he gave it. And he had given it all the meaning. He had made it his entire identity. He had made winning his entire purpose. And now, that purpose felt empty. That day, when Arnold was interviewed about why he left the victory party early, he gave a vague answer. "I was tired. I needed rest." But the truth was more complex. He had left because staying there, pretending to celebrate, pretending to feel happy about a victory that felt hollow, was more exhausting than anything he could have done. He had left because in that moment, surrounded by celebration, he had felt completely alone. And the only place he could find himself again was in the gym, in the silence, with the weights, where everything was honest and simple and real. The early departure became one of those stories that people talked about. Arnold left the victory party early. They speculated about why. They created narratives. But no one really understood. No one understood that the early departure wasn't about exhaustion. It was about questioning. It was about a champion realizing that he had become a prisoner of his own success, that he had won so many times that winning no longer meant anything, that he had climbed so high that he had forgotten why he had started climbing, and that sometimes the most lonely place you can be is at the top, because at the top there is no one above you to push you, no goal left to chase, no victory left to pursue. There is only the question, what now? And Arnold didn't have an answer, so he did the only thing he knew how to do. He went to the gym. He trained. He tried to remember why he had started. And in the silence of the empty gym at midnight, surrounded by weights and mirrors and his own reflection, Arnold Schwarzenegger understood something fundamental. Victory without meaning is just noise. Championship without purpose is just emptiness. And sometimes the bravest thing a champion can do is walk away from the celebration and sit alone with the question, what does it all mean? That is the story of the early departure, not about running away from success, but about confronting the emptiness that can exist at the top and the lonely search for meaning when you have achieved everything you set out to achieve and don't know what comes next.